Prologue. Dias Elsum shivered at the sight of what was before him. Outside the window of the tower, he could see it approaching the city of Holly Thong. He never thought of it as real. He had always assumed it was a fairy tale told by superstitious idiots to explain disease and suffering. But there, just outside his window, he could see the mythical source of all evil, a giant cloud of pure darkness. "This is all my fault," said Dias, barely above a whisper. "We are all at fault, Elsum," said Rhys, Dias's best friend and most trusted council member. "We could not have foreseen that Dai Malu itself would attack. The seers of Shalai did. If I had listened to them— The SS is a religion that no one has taken seriously in 150 years, exclaimed Rhys. And even if you did listen to them, the rest of the council would not have voted to waste time and energy preventing some mythical prophecy. And even if we did, what could we have done to prepare for this?" He gestured out the window at the thing outside. Dias sighed. "I know," he said. "I just can't help but feel guilty for this. Thousands of people are dead already. I know it's illogical, but I feel responsible." It started to engulf the city, darkness swallowing up buildings and streets. Dias felt tears spilling down his cheeks. He knew everyone in that cloud was dying. He tried to increase the chance of the cloud going around them, but if anything, the cloud starting moving toward the tower of the council with chance. "Should we go underground?" Rhys asked. "To what point? People died underground in all the other cities it's visited. No, it's not a storm you can simply take shelter from. Besides, it feels right that I should die with the people I have failed. Then I will stand and die with honor next to my leader and friend." Despite the circumstances, Dias smiled. This was why Rhys made such a good friend. He was loyal and brave. He would die next to his friend rather than seek a chance of hope. For a minute, they just stood there as the darkness got closer. Eventually, it was almost upon them. Dias turned to his friend. He tried to speak, to say one last word to the most brave, loyal, and humble man he knew. But the words caught in his throat. So he turned back, closed his eyes, and braced himself for the inevitable death just a moment away. 1 second. 2. 3. Dias opened his eyes and gasped. The cloud was going around the tower. Not just around it, but actually splitting apart to surround them. Just outside, a figure emerged from the darkness. A person stepped out and through the glass. He was a thin, pale man with long black hair and red eyes. But it wasn't just his physical features that were creepy. The man seemed to radiate fear and suck in hope. He looked around the council room, and without even bothering to glance at the two, opened his mouth to speak. Dias expected a cold, raspy voice. Voices sounded like steel on stone, but the stranger's voice was surprisingly deep and rich as he said, "I thought there were 11 members of the Council of Chance, yet I see only 2. The voice was somehow even more frightening than what Dias expected. He sounded unconcerned, in control, as if he was in charge and did not care what anyone else thought. "There were. They ran at the sight of the darkness." Dias didn't know why he said it. Every instinct told him to simply hide and avoid attention. But he spoke anyway. "They didn't actually believe you were coming." The man regarded Dias for a moment. Then he threw back his head and laughed. The sound was bone-chilling. Has the council forgotten why it was formed in the first place? He looked at Dias. "They have, haven't they? 1,000 years of politics and rule. Of course they would forget the reason they exist." "Are you really him?" asked Rhys. "Dai Malu? Yes, I am. The source of all evil, corruption, and fear itself," he chuckled. "The things mortals will believe," he muttered. "They somehow think that Shalai, of all beings, is God, the creator and eternal ruler of all things." He laughed some more. "But that is of little matter," Dai Malu said after he finished laughing. "You are of no importance to my plan." He didn't even look at Rhys, but he dropped to the ground. Dias stood still for a horrible moment. He ran up to his friend. Rhys was not breathing. "No!" he yelled. hugging his friend to his chest, tears streaming down his face. He sat there weeping for minutes, or was it hours? It could have been weeks for all Dias knew, but he didn't know what he was doing, but he released his friend's body and charged at Daimalu. He tried to tackle him to the ground, to wrap his hands around the monster's throat. But he just went straight through the man, falling and landing painfully on his right arm. Daimalu calmly walked up to Dias and picked him up and started choking him with one hand. "Did you really expect that to work?" Daimalu asked. He inspected Dias for a moment. "No, you didn't, did you? You didn't expect anything. You were simply driven by your emotions. Honestly, you mortals fascinate me. You have such a complex web of logic and feelings. For some it's a tangled mess, yet for others it is a beautiful, incredibly intricate and well-constructed pattern." He released Dias, who immediately dropped to the floor, panting and gulping in air. "If we are so interesting, why destroy us all?" Dias gasped. Daimalu smiled, a twisted, evil grin spreading across his face. "When you have a mouse or two in a cage, they can be quite interesting and even cute. But when you have a dozen mice crawling through the walls of your house, you kill as many as you can. You set traps, seal up any cracks in the walls, and leave a tasty, sweet-smelling poison." Daimalu grinned even further at the look of horror on Dias's face. "Besides, you jump to conclusions. I don't plan to kill all of you. If you're the mice, then I am the scientist. I am conducting experiments on my little mice. Experiments I need to fulfill my plan." "And what is your plan?" Dias asked in his shaky voice. He wasn't sure if he wanted to know, but the question was out of his lips before he had time to register the words. Daimalu stopped smiling. "That is not your concern." Beneath all the fear and pain, anger flared in Dias's chest. "If your plan involves me, then I like to think it is my concern." Dias suddenly remembered who he was talking to, and fear bubbled up again. Daimalu studied the cowering man for a moment, then the twisted old humor returned to his face. He laughed for a while and shook his head. "Mortals, so strange, so adorable. To cure your curiosity, I will tell you your part in the plan." He grinned and started to tell Dias why his life was being spared, and what he was to do. What he heard amazed, terrified, and fascinated him all at the same time.
Yay!